Almost. Brock Lesnar. It is happening at the Showcase of the Immortals. Confirmed on Monday Night Raw. We're going to talk about how the hell we got here and what is in the future for Omos with this big opportunity. Stay tuned. You are watching WrestleXtra.
Yo, this is WrestleXtra. I'm your boy A Dazzle, the Black Wrestling Advocate, always joined by my friends, my threesome, my trios team. Mex, the WrestleManiac, if you will, and the professor that is Gerard Bonner. Listen, just as Mex said, how the hell have we got here? Omos versus Brock Lesnar, confirmed with all the graphics and everything on Monday Night Raw, without even Omos being there. Gerard, I'm going to go to you first. Shed a bit of light. You are the professor. You are the man of knowledge. Shed a bit of light, if you can, as to how and why we are here. Brock Lesnar versus Omos at WrestleMania.
So I want to help everyone's emotions a bit, because I know everyone last night was somehow expecting for Brock Lesnar to not sign the contract. Or even, when MVP ended up spitting the what is it, moonshine, black magic, I don't know what drink that was, white lightning. When he spits that in Brock Lesnar's face, there's a part of me that's thinking, okay, that wipes the deal out. Here to me is the deal. Do not let your emotions be overcome. I don't care what Dave Meltzer says. I don't care what a flyer says. Flyers are meant to be changed. I believe it was this year in 2000 where we had what seemed to be a world title match involving Triple H and one other guy that turned into two other guys and turned into a fatal four-way with a McMahon in each corner. That was not the flyer they had coming out of the Royal Rumble. I'm telling you guys, flyers are meant to be changed. Go back to 2014 when it seemed like the main event was going to be Randy Orton versus Batista for the World Championship, and everybody's going, yes, yes, yes. Not for that, but for Daniel Bryan. And it wasn't until 2 weeks before that the flyer still hadn't been changed. The flyer still said that, and then they had to add, well, the winner between Daniel Bryan and Triple H will be thrown in this potentially for a triple threat. Things change all the time. I'm not going to believe that Brock Lesnar will battle Omos at the largest WrestleMania of all time until I see a 3 count between those two men in the ring. I'm not going to believe it. Somehow, because there are context clues being given. Don't miss them. Case in point, Brock Lesnar comes out, and in the middle of the promo, you have MVP already talking about Bobby Lashley by name. Why are we talking about Lashley by name if this is over? There's no need to talk about him if it's over. Then Bobby Lashley comes out. He has his match, which turns into a squash match, and he starts his promo with Brock Lesnar. And then we get into, the Bray Wyatt. Guys, just keep your composure. Relax. I know what they're telling you. We have 5 whole weeks. The whole world can change in 5 weeks, okay? I mean, think about it. When we came into Royal Rumble, we had no clue what was going to happen at Elimination Chamber 2 weeks later. And then all of a sudden, implosion happens with the Bloodline. Sami Zayn is fighting Roman Reigns, and now we're going, do we want Sami? Do we want Cody? What do we want at WrestleMania? 5 whole weeks until WrestleMania. The road is winding, and I still believe we're going to end up with Brock Lesnar and Bobby Lashley at WrestleMania. Because no offense to Omos, No offense to Bray Wyatt, but neither of those two matches warrant being on the largest WrestleMania of all time. So I'm still calm, as you can see.
I'm itching, but Mex, I'll let you go. I'll let you go.
I feel like Gerard's kind of put some equilibrium in the room, so I won't go off too mad. But yeah, it's just like he called him out last week, or MVP called him out last week, and now we're here. Brock, I mean, the segment was very good. Brock, you know, he's entered this stage where, you know, he's clearly just giving back at this point. And this is what makes me think that there is still something in this, that this could happen. Because if, like I think we discussed over the last 2 weeks, if they want to make something of Omos at WrestleMania, like, there is no better person to kind of, you know, do that with other than Brock Lesnar. He could literally, if they were daring enough to do this, almost could come out and squash Lesnar. Done. Like, quick time, and it is done. And everyone's jaw is on the ground. All of a sudden, a new, you know, monster has been made, sort of thing. He's had that crowning moment. I just, like, for me, it's not WrestleMania. It's not, you know, up there. I just don't see it. I don't even have words. Like, I'm gonna struggle to be invested in this. Like, I'm literally waiting for the point now. Like, if we're getting this, fine. But like I said, the way it needs to go is almost squashes him ASAP. And then it's like, wow, something has happened here. You know, and then obviously we'll see how Omos goes on to be booked. That's the other telling part following that. But I can't see a reason. They have a 5-minute, 10-minute match and Lesnar wins. What's the point? And I'm not even getting to the, you know, the other eventualities of, obviously Lashley is still looming there. So Gerard's very right in, you know, what you're saying. But like, in this, just following what they're telling us, in my opinion, this is how it has to go. Almost has to squash him ASAP. Like, if Lesnar wins this match, what is the point? Like, there's better people you could have given. Give Lesnar one of those smaller guys he always does, you know, great with. Ricochet and Lesnar could have put on a really good match if you wanted Lesnar to just come out and win anyway. They at least make it entertaining, or one of these other kind of guys still trying to find their feet. Bronson Reed, at least they seem to be somewhat invested in. That could have been a choice from, yeah.
That would have been
like good. So if it's almost, God bless him, well done. This is your golden ticket, son. You have to squash him ASAP, and then, you know, that you've been given a path almost. I mean, we can probably get into in a bit what, you know, the Lashley situation is looking like, but yeah.
So here's my thing. As much as Gerard tried his best to give us a glimmer of hope, the issue that I have is, or the thing that kind of makes me lose that hope is the fact that Bray and Lashley had their interaction. That's when I'm now thinking, oh, okay, so this whole Brock Lashley thing probably is over for now, or at least WrestleMania. For me, this whole thing just feels backwards in the sense where if these two matches, Bray and Lashley, Brock and Omos, happened at Elimination Chamber, fine, and then we get Bobby and Brock at Mania. We've got it the other way around, and I'm it's not making any sense to me whatsoever. I thought, as Gerard even said as well, that, you know, Lesnar was going to refuse. Lashley was probably going to come out. And then, you know, we get them two at WrestleMania in some kind of way. MVPs then behind Lashley and all the rest of it. That's not the case. The other thing I have a bit of an issue with is the fact that Omos wasn't even there last night. Like, why? I'm just perplexed by this whole thing. I don't even know where to take this conversation now because I'm just perplexed by this whole thing.
I want to offer one more glimmer of hope to you, a
Go on.
massive glimmer of hope. Let's go back in time to 1992. You've got Ric Flair and you've got the Royal Rumble. This Royal Rumble was the first Royal Rumble where the WWE Championship was on the line. Ric Flair wins the WWE title by winning the Rumble, right?
Mhm.
This is the first opportunity for Flair to be at WrestleMania. And then they shortly thereafter announce the new #1 contender to meet Ric Flair at WrestleMania is Hulk Hogan. All right, it's signed, sealed, delivered. Ric Flair, Hulk Hogan, we're promoting it. These things are happening. And then all of a sudden comes this wild press conference where we find out there will now be a double main event. It will now be Hulk Hogan against Sid Justice, and it'll be Ric Flair against Randy Savage. Wait, where did this come from? So my thought is, A, WWE knew that they lost a 92. They also lost a major opportunity at WrestleMania 31 by not pulling the trigger on Sting and Undertaker. They're not going to miss this moment at the biggest WrestleMania. I'm telling you, change happens. And if anything, if Triple H has taught us anything, it is to expect the unexpected. Now, I'll say this. I fully don't expect this match to happen. I don't. Here's why. And this is the problem. This is why it's so literally unbelievable. Because you have placed Brock Lesnar in the upper echelon, like the toppest, that's not even a word, the largest, highest tier that you can possibly have in the WWE. That's where Brock Lesnar lives. This is the guy that broke the streak of The Undertaker. This is a guy who, for almost every WrestleMania since then, has been involved in a world title match. Last year's WrestleMania, you called the biggest match in WrestleMania history with him and Roman Reigns unifying the title. He's only fought basically Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar all of 2022. Excuse me, Roman Reigns and Bobby Lashley all of 2022. So you can't convince me that Omos, God bless him, is now in the tier level of Bobby Lashley and Roman Reigns. That's why this match isn't going to happen unless one of two things happens. Either, like I said, it won't happen and it'll get switched and some crazy thing will happen. Omos is going to get injured. Something's going to happen. Or you manage to make Omos such a believable monster in 5 weeks that we go, okay, he can handle Lesnar. The question is, who do you do that and how? Who do you serve up to Omos in 5 weeks? Because it needs to happen every single week. Matter of fact, it needs to happen on Raw, on SmackDown, and then he needs to go and invade NXT. As many times as he can get on our television to show us he is a monster, he needs to do that so that we go, oh, okay, I can believe this match. None of those things are going to happen, folks. So save your emotions. We're not I don't care. I know they put the cool flyer, the cool movie graphics, all that. Almost didn't show last night. Like, you mean to tell me you're about to get the biggest match of your life and you don't show? If anything, he should have attacked Lesnar last night after Lesnar went after MVP.
Right.
Nothing. You send your representative. Nah, man.
So let me ask you, what do you think is Lesnar's WrestleMania program then?
I totally think it's Bobby Lashley.
Lashley, okay.
Yeah, because they keep talking about each other. If the war is over, it's over. Last night, you didn't hear Montez Ford talk about the U.S. title or the Elimination Chamber. That's over. They're as the tag team fighting, you know, the bloodline. Like, when it's over, it's over. So it's not over, folks. It's not over. Just watch and wait.
Any idea what happens with Bray then? Because I'll probably bet that, okay, Omos doesn't have a WrestleMania match maybe per se, but I would expect Bray to. So
I could deal with Bray and Omos, quite frankly. I could deal with that because Bray will make that work. I mean, Bray could fight almost anybody else. And I wouldn't have, let me be clear, I wouldn't have an issue with Bray versus Lashley if Lashley and Lesnar were actually done. And those two couldn't possibly fight, like Lesnar was out injured or something, so he couldn't be at WrestleMania. I mean, when I watched it last night, I don't want to say Lesnar was mailing it in, but Lesnar was chilling. Think about this. Lesnar, have we ever seen Brock Lesnar tell anybody this? Sell me on the match. He said, sell me on the match. And MVP was looking like, okay, how do I do that again? Oh, yeah, here's what I do. And he kind of went into his Paul Heyman bag. But he had to think about it. Who on planet Earth has ever been told by Brock Lesnar, sell me on the match?
The thing is, I'm struggling to kind of make it want to make the way I want it to go. My issue isn't simply Brock Lesnar versus Omos. That match isn't the issue. It's the fact that it's at WrestleMania. It's the fact that we still have Bobby and Brock. And then to add to my woes, we've had the interaction between Bobby and Bray. So I'm struggling to see how we then still get to Bobby and Brock again at Mania. Now, in my mind, Mania's 2 nights. Anything can happen, all this type of thing. You could still get maybe, one of the matches happens, and then in the other person's match, say, for example, we get Brock and Omos in the first night, Lashley and Bray in the second night, Lesnar then attacks Lashley during his match, or vice versa, whichever way it happens, something like that. I'm not necessarily seeing an actual match now between Bobby and Brock. Interaction possibly, but not a match. And I'm not sure. It's not making sense how we get there. The glimmer of hope that I have is, as you said, we're living in this, never say never era, especially with Triple H. Things are so open, and there's a chance, a possibility, or a hope, should I say, that we still get what we want. But I just don't know how.
I'll throw another last minute scenario for you that's going to make everybody lose their lunch, right? So literally we get to Mania and none of the things that I've said has happened. None of them. We are at the entrance point where Brock decides to enter first. He enters the ring first. Here comes Omos's music, and there's no Omos because Lashley attacks Omos, and Lashley inserts himself into that match right then and there. He may make us wait that long, but I'm not convinced that WrestleMania 39 will end with Brock versus Omos and no Brock versus Lashley. I am not convinced.
But you still got Bray hanging his fireflies and
who knows where, this is kind of the corner that they've painted themselves in with Bray, because I'm not sure who you put against Bray at this point. I'm not sure. What's equally wild when you think about the Bray piece is it's like Bray is reverted to his old ways.
Yep.
And we don't really have an explanation why. So that again makes all of it is. I think it's intentional confusion, though. I don't think this is, this is not, they don't know what they're doing. No, they do know what they're doing. They're intentionally swerving us. And we have the last 7 to 8 months to prove that. Ever since July of 2022, Triple H has been in his bag. The storytelling in WWE has made sense, perhaps unlike any other era we've seen. There's no way we're going to get to the road to WrestleMania and screw all that up. There is something happening. We just have to wait to get there.
Yeah. I just don't know how. I guess in a way that's what makes it exciting. I'm always a big fan of the fact that when we're watching wrestling, it's not a full-on conclusion. That's part of the excitement. This one, I guess, for me is just a little more confusing in the sense of, but how? Whereas with, for example, the biggest story in WWE with Cody, Sammy, and Roman, there are so many scenarios and ways it can turn into whatever you want it to turn into. Right. Whether you're a Cody fan, whether you're a Sammy fan, whether you're a Jay fan, there's so many ways it can go, which make logical sense. Whereas now I'm like, this one here, I'm just like.
Plus, we're vested in all those people. I think the issue is we're not really vested in Omos. That's really the issue here. We're not vested in him. And so because we're not vested in him, it doesn't seem plausible that he would he have a match at WrestleMania? Sure. We might put him in the Battle Royal or might put him in some other match, maybe even, a ladder match for a title. There's always intrigue when you have the really tall guy in a ladder match. You could, right? But Brock Lesnar, like, that is so far away from what any of us deem to be plausible or possible. That's why it seems so far-fetched, which is why I think this is so funny. Like, I think this is trolling at its finest. And I will eat my words in April if everything I said doesn't come to pass. And, we sat through Brock and Omos and Lashley and Lesnar never touched each other. Then I'll come back here and be like, I got it wrong, guys. But I feel very sure. I feel very, very sure. I was so sure that I almost put something on the line, but I'm like, no, because I'm not in control of it. And if I lose it, I'm in trouble. So I'll just say I feel very, very sure that we will not see Omos and Brock. Like, if we do, we'll still somehow see Brock and Lashley somehow.
I'm glad you're amused by this because I'm not. I'm perplexed as to how we got here, and like I said, I don't want to see it. If we are going to see it, I've said how this needs to go. But Lashley and Lesnar should be the end goal. This shouldn't be like a red herring. This is what they should be building up to 5 weeks out from the pay-per-view. So I can't lie, I'm frightened that this is what we're getting. But it could have some good for Omos if they kind of book it correctly. There is no Lesnar win here that would justify this decision. Lashley beating up Omos and then coming out to take his place, because I think ultimately MVP, when he stuck it to Lesnar last week backstage in that segment, he said something like I think he said something along the lines of Lashley couldn't get the job done, so this is someone that could, something along those lines. Or maybe if Lashley had me in his corner, he would have got the job done, or something like that. So there's still motivation there for Lashley. Like you said, he did mention Lesnar on the show today before the spooky Bray stuff started happening.
Right.
We'll see. Maybe it's too early to just see the direction just yet, but here's the last point on this for me, actually. You mentioned what MVP said, but MVP was bigging up Lashley throughout that whole promo, and even last week it was more of a you couldn't beat Lashley fair, so I'm going to put a giant in front of you. Obviously, in the promo last night, it was all, you can beat any man, but can you beat a giant? Blah, blah, blah. So MVP was still bigging up Lashley in a massive way. I want to end on a bit of a fairer note for Omos, because here's the thing. Omos' first match at WrestleMania, he won the tag team championships.
Right.
Every time he's been asked or been put on a main stage in a somewhat big match for him, at least, he's actually performed well. So this is what I'm saying. For me, it's not an issue that it's Omos versus Brock. It's just more so the fact that we had Lashley Lesnar a few weeks ago, but it's not happening at Mania. That's the part that perplexing me. Like, as I said, if it was the other way around, no issue whatsoever. But we'll have to wait 5-6 weeks. What is it now? 32, 31 days until Mania. So we'll see. We'll see. Quickly, actually, the other thing that kind of confused me a little bit on Raw last night. I think Gerard, you mentioned it very quickly. It was the whole thing with Montez Ford.
Mm-hmm.
We were saying last week on this show, when Montez comes back, he has to mention what he did in the Elimination Chamber. He has to mention this, that, and whatever else, and all the rest of it. None of that happened. They mentioned it on commentary, showed the clip of what he did in the cage, and that was it. Is that a misjudgment or a missed opportunity by WWE? Gerald, what do you think?
It could be a missed opportunity unless they are waiting until after Mania to start that particular push. You know, I think, I don't know what all of the original WrestleMania plans have been for everybody, but it's safe to say that, I don't know, I'm assuming that there's something for the Street Profits at WrestleMania, and maybe it's let's get through that, and then Montez, let's put the rocket ship on you after Mania. But it does seem crazy to me after all of the buildup of Montez in there, him being, you know, almost among the last three, certainly in the chamber, the amazing moves that he did, everything about him that proved to be a star. It just seems wild that we're going to act like that hasn't happened. So my hope is that they're going to come back around and reference it, perhaps post-Mania, if there is some Mania plan in place for the Street Profits.
Max, what are your feelings on this whole Montez?
I think it's disappointing. Like, the Elimination Chamber was a launch pad somewhat for a lot of these mid-card kind of guys. Johnny Gargano had a good performance. Montez had a good performance. Damian Priest had a good performance. Bronson Reed had a good performance. And since then, none of them have really been booked in a way that quite says, yeah, leading on from that. Like, they showed Montez's spot coming off the top of the Elimination Chamber before his match started. They're building him up. They're giving him like that hot tag position. And, you know, he's not taking the pins. So it's promising in that sense, if you want to be optimistic. But yeah, it doesn't say like this is the guy, you know, right now. I think last week they gave Bronson Reed a match. Again, like little fanfare around it. He wasn't even on TV this week. Johnny Gargano was here wrestling Otis this week. Finn Balor next week, okay, that's good. But Finn Balor probably wins to help him build up what he's doing at Mania. Damian Priest has nothing to do at Mania so far. The rest of the Judgment Day do. So it's like, why did you kind of spotlight all of these guys so well to then not have anything to follow on from? And I know, you know, the Mania card or, you know, a push can't be for everybody.
No.
But it's just like, maybe if it's like a post-Mania thing, like Gerard is saying, maybe he should have waited then. Maybe these particular spots should have been for these quote-unquote B-level pay-per-views. Let these kind of other guys carry them and give it a bit of a push and give it something new. Like, I'm just thinking that even at Montez Ford is with what we know will probably be the tag team match for the titles. Where does the likes of the Street Profits fit in? Like, at best, I'm thinking maybe they have on either of the days, they have like some type of, I don't know, fatal four-way. They haven't got loads of tag teams anyway. Like a fatal four-way tag team match to determine who will be the number one contender for the tag team titles, say on Raw after Mania.
Right.
Like something random like that feels like their WrestleMania match is important. Like, otherwise, what are they doing? Like, I mean, a little implosion or something between Ford and Dawkins, and then they have a WrestleMania match amongst themselves could be interesting. And then you could say, all right, post Mania, we might be going somewhere with these guys. But other than that, like, not just for Ford in this case, but the rest of them, what are they doing? All these guys that had a great Elimination Chamber, people were saying this is one of the best Elimination Chambers they've seen.
Right.
But apart from Theory walking out with the title he walked in with and probably getting Cena, Rollins has obviously got the Logan match. What is everyone else in this match going to be doing come 4 weeks' time?
I have an idea. And there's a part of me that wonders, usually at Mania, there is some sort of multi-man match that involves one of the mid-card championships. Right now, the mid-card championship that we don't know who's going to be fighting for is Walter's I called him Walter, sorry. Gunther and his Intercontinental Championship. He's been a long-standing champion. They could do a situation like they did a couple of years ago in the women's tag title match where they had a fatal 4-way night 1 and the winner goes on to fight the champions night 2. So I could potentially see a Priest, a Ford, Gargano, and maybe somebody else involved in a 4-way or maybe even a ladder match, to get that opportunity at Gunther the next night. What they did with both elimination chambers, particularly the women's one, where they had people from Raw and SmackDown in fighting for the chance to fight the Raw Women's Champion, says that you could bring people from both brands to be in this ladder match to potentially get this shot at Gunther on the next night. I think that's an opportunity, and perhaps inserting Ford there and not Dawkins could create that kind of friction that we're looking at. Because one of the things that we have to acknowledge is it seems as though Dawkins has been taking these pins when the Street Profits have been losing. So it's now kind of a thing of, okay, are you holding me back? I think there are still places to go. I'm not fully off the train yet. I'm thinking that there's still some time to build these things to something that's meaningful at Mania. Again, they have 2 nights to fill up, which is a different scenario than a one-night Mania. So it gives multiple people the opportunity to get some things in and to get some things done. So that's my hope, is that maybe we end up seeing some sort of multi-man number 1 contenders match for the Intercontinental Championship, since that's really the only title that's not spoken for as of right now when it comes to Mania.
I think we're getting Drew McIntyre, Gunther, and maybe Sheamus thrown in there anyway. I don't think they're doing that. And I don't know if you guys have seen in the past day or two, Triple H has said, like, we're not having all of these hella matches on.
I was gonna say,
it down.
Which I'm not mad at.
Likewise. But then it means like the guys that are getting cut are probably the ones that we're speaking of. Right. They're the ones that probably aren't going to get a WrestleMania moment, a WrestleMania match, battle royal at best. If they put that on the main shows, he wants to make it maybe feel like a proper WrestleMania, just top guys only, which again I'm not mad at. So I can't necessarily see them having a spot around that kind of situation either.
I'm all for this whole thing of not having every man on the card and all that kind of thing, because all of those battle royals and the Andre the Giant Memorial all just felt like just a waste of time, just time killing basically. So I'm not mad at that at all. But then at the same time as well, going back to this whole thing with Montez, for me it wasn't necessarily about Montez then having a program at Mania. It's not about that specifically at all. I remember posting about everything that happened with Montez, and a lot of the comments was all about Montez should face Austin Theory, blah blah blah. I'm like, no, let's not do that. It doesn't have to happen that quickly. But I feel as though they're missing the trick last night, or not continuing things last night. Kind of just felt, as Mick said, what was the point? Almost, or maybe we should have waited a few more weeks and then kind of start this push. It just feels weird that it's happened. It was mentioned for like 2 minutes and then he's back. Kind of, not that he's back with Dawkins, that being a problem, but then not acknowledging it, or them not making it, because he came out with a mic,
right?
But he's talking to the Usos.
I get it.
Something was missing. So it's not about Montez being at Mania. Even if Montez is not on the card whatsoever, I don't think I'd be mad. It's more so the lack of continuity from what he did at Elimination Chamber that I'm kind of like thinking, okay, so what are we doing with him? What is the next step? How do we carry on? There's still there's still ways to do it. There's still time.
Sure.
It's not over. You know, we can still do it in some sort of way. As you said, Gerard, you know, we've been seeing that Dawkins has been taking the pins. That's another way to kind of, you know, not recreate, but you know, start this whole thing again and whatnot. So it's not over, but I just feel as though it still should have been Montez saying something about what he did, and then maybe he have a singles match with someone to kind of continue a momentum without having to be, you know, the number one contender, without having it, you know, him and Dawkins having some fallout and blah blah blah. But yeah, it just felt as though it was missed, and you don't know what's happening next. And I think Mex put it perfectly with everyone else that was in the match as well. Bronson Reed, Priest, Johnny Gargano, all kind of doing stuff that was like the Elimination Chamber match didn't happen. As much as they all mentioned it, apart from Bronson Reed, who doesn't really talk, but they've all mentioned it. But yet the momentum hasn't continued. So it's just like, what's the next step? You know what I mean? I think that's what it is really. But yeah, that's what it is with that. We'll see what happens with that one. And moving away from this now, we've heard the news finally, 20 years later, sorry, only a year later, that we now finally have confirmation of weekly episodic TV when it comes to Ring of Honor. Of course, it was about a year ago. Tony Khan announced that he had bought Ring of Honor. We've had new champions, we've had pay-per-views, but everyone was waiting for an announcement for a weekly show, whether that be on a TV network or YouTube or something like that. We finally know that every Thursday, starting from this Thursday, I believe, we are going to have Ring of Honor on Honor Club. I believe it's like $9.99 or something like that. And we'll have weekly shows. Some of them have already been recorded. It's going to be, they've been recorded at Universal Studios where they do Dark Elevation at the moment. Mex, how do you feel we finally have this announcement? How do you feel about ROH, and what are you expecting, should I say, from ROH come the next few weeks?
It's good. I've been waiting for this from the acquisition of you know, Ring of Honor and all its bits and bobs that came along with it. So it's been a long wait. We finally got some clarity. It's finally happening. They've done the first tapings. I expect it to be AEW heavy. A lot of maybe the top-ish mid-card guys over there doing bits and, you know, helping to kind of, at least in the first instance, create that market over there, get some of the AEW fans watching Ring of Honor. You know, you can see whoever those said mid-card guys are probably doing some stuff over there. It's going to be interesting to see, if we haven't seen them already, any of, like, I guess the Ring of Honor roster, or like I say OG roster, but the roster before they kind of disbanded, who gets picked back up and is going to be involved in this. It's going to be interesting to see how AEW actually use this. Like, will it be like a feeder system somewhat into AEW? You know, if you're doing well on ROH and you get super over, can we now put you on our product on TV? I'm optimistic. You know, this is what we do. We talk wrestling, we cover wrestling. So in that aspect, I'm looking forward to kind of having another show to watch. Where I will find the time to watch it, only God will provide. But like right now, I'm looking forward to having something else to watch. My only pessimism of the situation is that Tony Khan is stretched. As he is super stretched. The general consensus, you know, with people right now is that AEW is cold, like colder than it's ever been. It's ice cold, like it's an igloo. Like we're building to a pay-per-view. Got a pay-per-view this Sunday, and without doubt, the pay-per-view, the matches will be great night of wrestling as it always is. But investment in getting to the pay-per-view has probably been at an all-time low. And this is now a man that's going to, basically create another house while this said house is on fire. So it's like we need to, I don't know that he should be doing Ring of Honor. Leave it in someone else's hands to book. If he still had Regal would have been perfect for that. I'm still sure he's got people backstage that would be perfect for it. But obviously we know, Regal's credentials. It's a lot. It's a lot for one man to do. And I feel like is he going to, Gareth in the chat and igloo chat on fire.
That's hilarious.
I set myself up for that one.
That is hilarious.
Yeah, I just think, he has to kind of try to obviously stir the ship back, or AEW, especially this is like AEW's it's the best part of the year for them, like post Mania. Now their shows start coming. We got Double or Nothing and All Out later on, and Forbidden Door is going to be somewhere in the middle. Hopefully we get that again. But now he's got that to worry about. He's got Ring of Honor to worry about. I don't know. I don't know. But I'm looking forward to Ring of Honor kind of starting again.
Gerard, so we know that we're getting the main event is the ROH champion Claudio Castagnoli versus AR Fox. Mex also mentioned, will we see some of the ROH, I guess, originals or the final roster that was there before they, kind of disbanded or were acquired. Are you expecting to see? Oh, actually, no. Who are you expecting to see kind of come through and probably become a little more prominent now in ROH?
Well, it's funny you should mention that. I actually have several of the matches scheduled to air tomorrow, or Thursday night rather. So this kind of will give you an indicator of what we'll be seeing from Ring of Honor in this first week back, which I think is a pivotal week. I think this first show is pivotal. If they come in AEW heavy, it'll tell us this is kind of AEW light. I hate saying it that way. If they come in with folks who are either germane to Ring of Honor or who are not featured prominently in AEW that could move over to this Ring of Honor roster, that'll give us an idea. So you mentioned the main event, which is Claudio Castagnoli and AR Fox. Another match that's going to be happening is the six-man tag champions, the Embassy. They'll be taking on Joe Keys, Rex Lawless, and LSG. I've not seen any of those guys in AEW. I'm actually very excited about this women's match that's going to happen as Willow Nightingale takes on Lady Frost. We've seen Lady Frost quite a bit in Impact as well, and we saw her briefly in the NWA. Her making her way to Ring of Honor is a plus. I think that's a big win for their women's division. Then, now, you will love this. The second I saw this, I got so excited. Blake Christian taking on the debuting Zack Sabre Jr. This is massive. Okay? Zack Sabre Jr. in Ring of Honor against Blake Christian. This speaks volumes to what we can expect from Ring of Honor. This is massive. It's huge. It's a 1-hour show. That's about 4 or 5 quality matches that we're going to get to see. So I'm excited about what Ring of Honor has a chance to do, what they have a chance to bring us. I am imagining it's going to really open the door to some memberships over at Ring of Honor Club for Honor Club. I'm excited about that. And the fact that we're seeing guys that are, we've not really seen Zack Sabre Jr. in AEW. Zack being the current IWGP World Television Champion on Ring of Honor TV is massive. So this is going to be good. You feature your 6-man tag champions. That's a good thing. I like this.
I don't want. I don't mean to be pessimistic. I just jump in quickly.
Yeah.
Rampage was this good when it started
Right.
as well.
Yeah.
I just say
and that's the point I was gonna go with, because with that card, it sounds great. It sounds great on paper, but then at the same time, as Gerard mentioned, Zack Sabre Jr., you know, debuting, never been on AEW TV, never kind of, you know, we've never seen him or whatever else. The three guys that are facing the ROH Trios champions, or six-man tag champions, should I say?
Yeah.
Never featured on AEW or whatever else before, possibly on Dark in some way. Maybe I'm a little bit too optimistic with this. Maybe I'm hoping for too much, but I kind of don't see stories beginning or something like that coming from this show, or from that card specifically. Now, I think my fear is it's going to become very much like Dark, just with the ROH championships being defended every now and again. And I think that for me is the fear.
Well, to that end, I will say one of the tough things for any pilot episode, if we want to call it that, is how long it takes before we can create some stories that people will latch onto. You know, so I don't. One of the things I'm glad about is I'm glad that we don't have, as at least of now, any AEW bleed over stories. I'm actually glad that we get a chance to let the Ring of Honor product stand on its own. So, you know, what we don't know is we don't know if there are any interviews. We don't know if anybody's interfering in matches. We don't know what other kind of segments are going to be involved that can create stories. Now, the one thing we do have to remember is that these telecasts are going to start building us up to Supercard of Honor at the end of March. And so we don't know all of the matches on that particular card. So there at least is purpose to these next 4 to 5 weeks of television for Ring of Honor. So that excites me, because it's not just them aimlessly out in the wind, you know, taking 4 weeks to create a story. They're going to have to start kind of soon to get us invested in Supercard of Honor. So I feel good about that. And again, the product will tell us, but the other thing of it obviously will be how we handle this over time. What is the long-term plan, which we won't know until we see it starting to be rolled out.
Very, very true. Okay, so moving on from this, we're going to go to our final thing. It is the final day of Black History Month over in the US, and we celebrate it over here as well. Well, we as wrestling fans who are connected to the US. Anyway, so, you know, we've seen an interview that happened. I believe it was on Busted Open Radio.
Yeah.
Mark Henry had Big E and Xavier Woods, as well as, I forget his name completely.
Andreas Hale.
That's the one.
Yeah.
The guy who creates a lot of the New Day's gear and a few other people's stuff as well. And they were talking about Black wrestlers in the wrestling scene at the moment, and something very interesting that Big E said. I don't know if we have the clip at all, but something that he said was, you know, it's nice to see so many Black wrestlers in the scene right now who are at the top of their game, the likes of Bianca Belair, you know, Montez Ford, Angelo Dawkins, I think you mentioned by name as well, who are doing great things without it being because of the color of their skin. We've said it here a few times. It's been said so many times in so many different ways, different outlets as well, especially about Bianca Belair, where she's right now, where it's not only little Black girls that are putting on, you know, the ponytail and wearing the gear and, you know, screaming her name and all that kind of stuff. You know, it's all sorts of different little girls that are doing the same thing. How do we feel in general about this statement made? Is this something that is very true? Is it kind of almost there? Or is Big E kind of just seeing things through glasses that no one else sees it through? Mex, what is your take on the current state of black wrestling in the way that Big E's kind of put it out there?
He's right. It's very healthy. We are long past the days of I say long past, but we're past the days of the black person having to fit in a box. I guess the last time we may have seen something like that might have been when they were doing what's that thing called, Raw Underground, and Omos was the bodyguard for Shane, or bodyguards for Raw Underground. That's the last kind of stereotypical thing, but that at the same time was almost, it was his entry into this world. You see what I mean? It wasn't like that was his fully fledged character or bodyguard. So yeah, we're moving away from those generic stereotypes and just letting the characters tell stories for who they are and what they stand for. And I said this last week. There is no chance it was by design that Sasha Banks is IWGP Women's Champion.
Right.
Japan that holds this thing more important than sports entertainment or wrestling. This is like a real sport for them. Like it is not by design to tick a box. Oh yeah, let's get a black woman to hold our title. Bianca Belair in WWE, Jade Cargill in AEW. Like these people, they look the part, they behave the part, they're carrying themselves in a certain way. They know what they stand for, they know what they believe in. They got good morals. You know, the cream rises to the top, in it. Like it's
Right.
what happens in it. There's only so much you can be denied for. Like, and with wrestling, we know it's a thing about timing. Timing is so important. Like, I remember like all of us kind of scratching our heads watching NXT, seeing how great Bianca was in NXT. When are they gonna give this girl the NXT title? Like, you know, losing to Shayna Baszler, and then she's come to the main roster, and she hasn't done anything but been in that main picture. Like, this is it's like, okay, maybe there were still things they were ironing out there. The timing probably wasn't quite right because Shayna was terrific down there as well. But here, you are that person, and NXT is that niche crowd, but that maybe they thought she can't transcend in front of these pro wrestling purists, if you like. But they put her in front of the millions of people, the little girls and everything, like you said. You know, it's gold. So you know, everyone's doing this. New Day have been around the block. They've literally done it all. Like, and we've got Street Profits who are, you know, hopefully whether they're together or apart, they're soon going to ascend to that kind of position. Hobbs, Starks, that Big E mentioned as well, over in AEW. Keith Lee came out today. I saw it just before we started recording. He said there's no reason he can't be AEW's first black champion.
Right.
All right. Challenge accepted, Keith. Get to work. You see what I mean? Like, there's too much evidence of greatness happening within this community now that you can't put yourself amongst it. So yeah, there isn't any kind of diversity. Oh, let's tick a box and make this person the champion, or put this person on TV this week, or like a certain Mr. Khan said all those Januaries ago, oh, you know, 4 black people won on TV this week. Like, leave it out. We're past that. We are past that. So yeah, he's right in kind of singing those praises, and long may it continue.
Gerard, so you know, we're establishing that Biggie's, you know, on the right track, but do you still feel as though there is still a way to go? And I don't mean necessarily in general. I mean in the case of, for example, maybe on an NXT, for example, or on Level Up, you've still got a few people that feel a little bit stereotypical. There are a few faces and few folks that feel a little bit stereotypical. Do you think that there is still place for that, or do we have to kind of completely get rid of that in order to feel as though, you know, we are in this new sphere of the black wrestler just being a wrestler?
I think the intriguing thing about pro wrestling is that it does mirror the communities that it serves. And so, you know, there are people of color that relate to all of the different presentations that are out there right now. which is exciting. So I'm not as moved by, and it doesn't feel right now stereotypical big presentations of us that we can go, okay, this isn't the only version of us there. Whereas in times past, there was one black person in a territory or a promotion, and what you get is what you get. So if they're not, very articulate, yikes, we're nervous. If they are. So I like the fact that there is such great diversity across all versions of what we look like as people. And probably the most important piece of it is you have to be able to translate as a believable athlete, regardless of your color. And so what excites me is when we hear Bianca Belair at number 1 on these PWI lists, or we look at the 4 Black women who are champions in 4 major promotions, nobody sits back and says, oh, but it's because they're trying to reach the Black community.
Right.
As opposed to, and I hate to say this, but you'll get it, the asterisk that always comes up when you mention the great Khali and Jinder Mahal as former world champions. We all go, oh yeah, but they were trying to reach, the billion people in India, right? Because what they presented did not translate as world championship material. We can clearly say with all of the people that are in positions right now that they translate to being world champions, to being the top athletes in their space. And I think that's important. I think what's equally important that we rarely mention when we start talking about how times are different is that not only do we have those people, but now we have media outlets that are willing to talk about them. We sometimes downplay the role that media plays in bringing certain things to the forefront. But this is my opportunity to tell the world, without a Black Wrestling Alliance, without so many other, without the work that Mex is doing and Brian Waters and TK Trinidad and all of these names that we can now rattle off that have entities that show love to the African-American wrestler, most people would know. Because, in the 80s, the 90s, and the 2000s, there were not these kinds of publications or outlets that would tell you about it, because most of them it wasn't even conscious to them, that we need to talk about the importance of the Junkyard Dog, or we need to talk about the importance of The Rock. Like so the era that we live in, having so many outlets, podcasts, content creators, etc., that are able to shine the light on African-American wrestlers and all that they contribute all around the world, speaks volumes to encouraging the Black wrestler while informing the community of what's actually out there. Because there's a lot of people who only get to watch AEW or WWE. And so through outlets like this, they get to learn about the Queen Aminatas and the Trish Adoras, and the Michael Okus and all of these wrestlers who are contributing at a major level on the independent scene that we will soon see in these other places. So as much as we shout out the Black wrestler, we got to shout out the Black content creators and media.
This is very true. I mean, it's phenomenal to see the transition, even just as me as a fan, from being young. We had the stereotypical stuff. You had the Animal Man that was Coco Beware. You had the Black man in chains who was the Junkyard Dog. You had the sports star turned wrestler who was Ron Simmons. You had all of these kind of stereotypicals, and then you have things that were even worse. I'm not even going to mention. But now all the big names, your Bobby Lashley, Bianca, Montez, Tasha Steeles, Jay Cargill, so many more of us, Willow Nightingale, who are literally, and Jonathan Gresham as well, because he's been so vocal about this whole thing, who are literally just simply good wrestlers. It's as simple as that: athletic, charismatic, technically gifted, all that kind of stuff. And again, it's as you mentioned as well, even with the content creators and stuff like that. When I started this thing 5 years ago, there was no one else doing what I'm doing. Whereas now I'm kind of like, right, what do I do next? Because everyone's doing what I'm doing. You know what I mean? And that's the beauty of it, though. At the same time, that's the beauty of it. At the same time, there are some people who have gone clear with so many things that they're doing, so many opportunities that they're creating for themselves, or that people are, you know, seeing how good they are and coming for them, and you know, I mean, all that, and all that type of thing. So it's amazing to see just in the last 4 or 5 years how much wrestling has evolved for the black community, whether that be wrestlers, fans, or content creators and journalists alike.
Do you remember?
Go for it.
Sorry, do you remember? Yeah, when it was the pandemic, and we were just seeing black wrestlers on Dark, black wrestlers on Raw, SmackDown, AEW in Daily's Place.
Yeah,
and we said, like, black people are probably seeing this as their opportunity. Yes, it's dangerous outside, COVID is about, but they're probably seeing this as their opportunity, where some of their counterparts might be thinking, one, my space is safe. I can not be on TV and come back whenever, you know, and get back on TV easy.
Right.
And two, this is my opportunity to really, you know, put my flag in the ground and show my skills. And you know, a lot of them have basically used the pandemic as a dojo, if you like, to kind of hone their skills. And now TV's back, you know, WrestleMania, if we're talking about WWE, WrestleMania hasn't had like a WrestleMania without Bianca Belair being in a title match at this point.
Right.
Like, and that's due to obviously the hard work she put in NXT, but the time she spent during the pandemic in those empty arenas. You know, the same happened with, you know, Ricky Starks took his opportunity going over to from NWA over to AEW as well during that same time. Will Hobbs, remember we were talking about Will Hobbs losing on Dark. We bloody nearly threw a party here the day he got his first win. All of these people have put in this work at this quiet period, and we're now seeing the fruits of their labor.
And the thing is, I think that that exact same thing happened not just for wrestlers, but also the content creators that we're talking about, because I remember that being a time when, you know, because of the circumstances of the world, my mind was here, there, and everywhere outside of the whole wrestling thing, whereas others jumped in. Everyone jumped in at that time. And we are where we are now that things are open back up again. It's like, I don't even know whether it created new opportunities or just so many more people were just ready for it. So it just feels like new opportunities. But, you know, everyone was on it, and it's crazy to think just how things are now. But it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. On that beautiful note, it is the end of our show. You have been watching WrstlXtra on the WrestleManiac UK YouTube channel. Don't forget to like, subscribe, click the notification bell to see what this guy Mex is doing with reactions on AEW and WWE on a weekly basis. Find this guy here on WrestleManiac.uk on Instagram and WrestleManiac UK on Twitter. Of course, the professor that is Gerard Bonner, here, there, and everywhere. You can find him Bonified on all social media. The Faction Show as well, his own show, WWT Live. Where else? The Nightmare Factory, Southern Honor Wrestling, everything. You can find me, A Dazzle on Black Wrestling Alliance on Instagram and BWA Dazzle on Twitter. Whew! Now that all is done, I can breathe. But we gotta go. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again next time.
See you later, guys.